Hello everyone. So this is our first interview for our blog Doing Sociology, and we are extremely pleased to welcome Dr. Madhu Sharan, who is the president of Hand in Hand, a leading NGO. She is going to talk to us about her journey with sociology and then how she carried forward her sociological knowledge in the development sector. Welcome, Dr. Sharan. We are very pleased to have you with us.
Thank you
I
so
would like
much.
to Yes, thank you for coming and being with us virtually during these torrid times. So I would introduce Dr. Sharan a bit. She is a livelihoods and gender specialist with over 2 decades of extensive field research and global work experience in facilitating social and economic empowerment of rural women in India. As the president of a leading NGO in India, Hand in Hand, she oversees projects related to women empowerment, financial inclusion, skilling, and entrepreneurship among women living at the bottom of the pyramid across several states of India. Prior to this, she has worked as a consultant with several bilateral and multilateral organizations, including the Asian Development Bank, ZIZ, and DFID, for monitoring and evaluating projects related to financial inclusion, gender equality, and development. Dr. Sharan, as I already told you, is a sociologist, having completed her graduation from Delhi University and her post-graduation MPhil and PhD in sociology from JNU, New Delhi. In all her works, both theoretical and practical, Dr. Sharan has relentlessly advocated the cause of women's inclusion and participation in the workforce to enable them to achieve economic independence, self-reliance, and ultimately greater gender equality in society. So a very, very warm welcome to Dr. Sharan. At the same time, I am also introducing all of you to my colleague and friend Dipali, and I'm Rituparna. So we are going to be conducting the interview with Dr. Sharan. Okay. So, Dr. Sharan, if you could tell us a little bit about your journey in the social sector. I mean, how did you enter it?
Okay, my journey in the social sector. Okay, very interesting journey, in fact, and I think a lot of learnings, and I would think that destiny had a huge role to play actually in my journey in the social sector. So, to begin with, I was interested in teaching sociology. So, my aim was that after I finished my master's from JNU, I would go on to do my MPhil, PhD, write the UGC, and join a college. It just so happened that when I finished my master's and I had just cleared my MPhil interview, I got a call from Carmel Convent, New Delhi, my alma mater, to teach sociology to high school students for 3 months, because I think their sociology teacher was on leave. And they asked me to fill the gap for 3 months. Since I had time, so I took it up. And I was so surprised that when I started teaching high school students, Carmel Convent is a girls' college, I really enjoyed myself, because these were girls from the age group of 16 to 18, lot of questions, curiosity, and I had a lot of fun teaching. I think there was some play of destiny that the teacher, their sociology teacher, did not come back. So I continued to teach, and I got married. I had 2 children, and then I was happy to be there and settle into a nice routine. Just to keep the connect with sociology, I don't know how I also got involved in NCERT. CBSE and the National Open School as a member of the advisory committee for textbook writing. And I think here is where I came in touch with all my professors from JNU. Professor Yogender Singh, it's so unfortunate that he's no more with us and will be deeply missed. Professor K.L. Sharma, Professor Maitri Chaudhary. So we were all part of the, the textbook writing, editing team. And but I think after 10 years of teaching sociology at high school, I think I got a bit restless. And then again, I wrote the All India JNU MPhil PhD exam. And that is when I cleared again. And so I joined MPhil after almost 10 years of passing out. And here I was in my MPhil coursework in JNU at the age of 35 or 36 with my other classmates who were, I think, 24, 25. I was 10 years older to them. But still, it was good fun. And then coming back to my journey, my MPhil dissertation was on women empowerment and microfinance. I think there was no looking back after that. So my MPhil dissertation was on women empowerment. And again, I think destiny had a big role to play because my husband got transferred to Chennai just when I had, started my MPhil dissertation. And I enrolled myself in MIDS, Madras Institute of Development Studies, as a PhD scholar. And they had these Friday lectures by, by the specialist in the economic and social sector. One day, my current boss, who has been my boss over the last, I think now 14, 15 years, she came to give a talk, Dr. Kalpana Shankar. She's now the managing director of Hand in Hand India. She came to give a talk on self-help groups of Grameen and the India model. And I, as a student, had a lot of questions. That is when she told me that she has just joined as CEO of Hand in Hand India, working for women empowerment through microfinance. And why don't I join her? Because I had a good theoretical knowledge, having done my PhD. She had a huge amount of practical experience. So she asked me to join. This was in 2004. So she asked me to join as project director. And from 2004 onwards began my journey in the development sector, in the area of microfinance and women empowerment. And I think now it's been, what, 17 years? So this has been my journey. And of course, I must add here that after 3 years, so of course, Chennai, I was continuing to do my PhD. I suddenly realized that, very bravely and smartly, I joined the social sector and, to become the project director, but I don't know Tamil. And everybody would talk in Tamil in Tamil Nadu. And so I learned the language because it was also helping me in my PhD, because my PhD thesis was on interrogating women's empowerment and microfinance. So while I was working, I was also doing my PhD, participant observation and my research. So I learned Tamil. I was, I was looking after 32 districts in Tamil Nadu. Then, as destiny, fate would have it, my husband got transferred back to Delhi. And that is when my MD said that, why don't you take Hand in Hand to North India, and where there is actual need for women's empowerment through microcredit. So then I came back to Delhi, started Hand in Hand India in North India. So Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Bihar, Jharkhand, Punjab, Himachal. So from 30 self-help groups in 2004, now we are almost 2 lakh self-help groups working with 23 lakh women. So the journey has been very exciting and full of learning. So yeah, that's it.
I think that has been that's a very interesting journey that you've just, told us about. Yeah. What we would like to know, Dr. Sharan, is a little more about your relationship with sociology. So if you could throw some light on that.
So actually, my relationship with sociology, well, sociology has been the guiding principle in my life and work. But I would talk about my work, So like I said, we work with self-help groups of women. We form women into groups and we give them a lot of training and capacity building, including skilling, self-help group management training, financial literacy training, and we enable them access to the government's financial services schemes. And finally, we also help them access credit, that is the microfinance, so that they are able to build sustainable livelihoods. So that is the work I do. In the work that I do, sociology has been a great guiding, governing principle, because 2-3 things here, I think, if I may add. One is this whole concept of relationships. I work with women. So for me, a woman is not just a woman. She's part of a huge network of relationships. Relationships in the family, relationships with her community, relationships in the market. You know, when she becomes an entrepreneur and she sets her business, then she has to compete in the open market. So a woman, so looking at woman or a person in the context of the web of relationships that she's a part of. So that is where sociology helped a great deal, you know, to like what Weber would say, interpretative sociology, to understand why people do what they do, you know, to understand the underlying meanings, or even what perhaps Merton would talk about, you know, the latent and the manifest. You know, it is not just what you observe on the surface, but it's lot to do with what happens, the unintended, the unobservable. Also, the second thing that I feel where sociology has really helped me in my work is, you know, I think I'm a functionalist at heart. For me, maintaining social order is the prime aspect of a society. And we all have to work towards maintaining a harmonious social order. And here, structures, agency, institutions play a big role. So how all these institutions go up to build a social order. So that has been quite a governing principle. And lastly, in my work, I think because I work with women, it has been the gender lens. I mean, whatever I do, whatever I see is always through a gender lens. And here again, you know, my PhD was in women's empowerment and microfinance. So, you know what Naila Kabir talked about, enhancing women's agency, resources, achievement, enabling her to make strategic life choices in areas that were denied to her earlier. All these have been very, very useful. So I think it would be these three things, basically. Yeah.
So again, going back to the question of, you know, probably your training in sociology, which gives you a lens to look at, you know, the work that you do in your sector. So I want to ask is, since you've already worked on gender and livelihoods and you continue to do it, has your engagement with sociology shaped your perspective in a different way? And how is it different from, say, an economist or someone else from the development sector? If you could give us some concrete examples for the same.
So I think, Dipali, it is, you know, a continuation of what I have said. My sociological perspective, I would think, is very different from the perspective of, say, a political scientist or an economist. And because, like I said, for me, women are center stage. Everything starts with women. And center stage with the entire network of relationships that she's a part of. You know, so women is the center, the context, but there are a lot of other factors. So if I have to promote women's empowerment, I have to also work parallelly along all the other agencies that can provide an enabling environment for a woman to further her agency. Be it the household, you know, the support of her household members, support from her community members, support from the bankers, because ultimately it is the bankers who give them credit. It is the banks who give them credit. So starting from women, but looking at women in the context of all her web of interactions, so that all these factors play a critical enabling role. So that is my perspective. So to give you a concrete example, for instance, if we give a loan to women, an economist would perhaps just look at, well, that's a loan which has been given and it has to be repaid on time in these many installments with this much of rate of interest. And maybe I think the economist would also be looking at the end use of loan, whether that loan has resulted in asset creation or whatever purpose it was taken for. But when I give a loan to a woman, the money is just a means. It is not the end. The money is a means to further her social empowerment, to further her economic empowerment, to further culture change. And you know, I can go on and on. I have so many stories. Like, you will be surprised. You know, can I give an example? I mean, if it's okay.
Sure.
You
Yes,
know, we were doing a project in Madhya Pradesh, which was supported by the Asian Development Bank, where we had to promote 20,000 women entrepreneurs who would do energy efficient enterprises. So everything had to be motorized. So we trained 20,000 women and rural women. So hand in hand India, we trained 20,000 women, and you know, women started becoming entrepreneurs in areas of CFL bulb assembling, leather bag making, you know. So, but there was one village in Madhya Pradesh where the entire women, they were part of the potters community. You know, they were doing this, but all of them had huge ghungat. So when we put the electrical wheel, when we motorized the pottery, the women could not keep up with, you know, working on the machine and balancing their wheel. So then we had to address this culture change, that can woman, you know, let go of her ghungat if she has to become an entrepreneur working on the motorized electrical wheel. So this issue was taken up by the panchayat. So my team, you know, went, you know, had several rounds of meetings with the village panchayat. We tried to, and they said, of course, no, it is part of culture. For 300 years or 200 years, they have been, you know, women have been doing it, you know, have been in parda. How can we do this? But they also saw that huge amount of money was coming from 220 pots a day on, you know, on the normal pottery machine. Now with the electrical wheel, they were able to produce 45. And we were doing the market linkage, but they also saw that the money was coming. And then after so much of negotiations, the panchayat passed a resolution that henceforth no woman in this village will cover her head or marginally cover her head. So this is the sociological perspective I'm talking about. So for me, just training, just loan, it is a means to further a woman's agency, so that she can, you know, lead to, I mean, so that there are changes in the social and cultural sphere. Similarly, in Rajasthan, you know, we work a lot in Rajasthan. And again, Rajasthan is so deeply patriarchal. And then trying to get women to be part of a group-based enterprise, pickle making, papad making, they have to come out of their homes, participate, negotiating with the family members, husbands, mother-in-laws, father-in-laws, negotiating with the community leaders, you know, and then all this. So for us, loan is a means to see that a woman can lead to change in her decision-making abilities, in her bargaining skills, negotiation skills, in her mobility. For women, going to the bank, I was surprised, is hugely empowering. I was, even during my PhD, when I would ask them, what is the one thing that empowers you? I was so surprised. So many women said, हमको बैंक जाना और बैंक वाले से बात करना, form भरना is very empowering. So these are the things that for me, as a person working in the development sector to promote financial inclusion, for me, that is a sociological perspective, that where the economic empowerment can lead to other avenues of empowerment. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sounds very interesting, as well as enriching. Do you think that the times that we are living in, you know, and amidst the COVID-19 pandemic as well, what kind of role can sociologists play in the civil society? And also, does a training in sociology, for example, with you, give you a better insight or better lens in terms of dealing with such a crisis?
So two things. I mean, COVID pandemic, I think it's a huge area, and I would really not like to go there, because I think just to say that the relevance of a sociologist in this COVID pandemic is huge. And there is much that we as trained sociologists, forget about sociologists, we as civil society members can do to help the in building this COVID response is tremendous. And just to give some concrete examples, we have seen what has happened. I mean, it is really tragic. Millions of our countrymen have taken the long walk back home, gone to their homes, and these are the skilled labor force, and staring at uncertain, hopeless futures. As civil society members and as civil society organization, I'm talking about my organization, I think we can do a lot to build. It will take time, because the scars that they have dealt with, it's something which will not go soon. The healing process will take time. But to begin with, I think what we can do as a civil society organization is try to rebuild some trust, rekindle hope in them, in terms of, trying to give them some assurance. The government has many schemes of food security, schemes of cash transfers, the Manrega, PM Kisan scheme, Jan Dhan Yojana, special relief scheme. So I think the civil society organizations working in the grassroots, and this is what hand in hand we have done. We have just bridged the gap between the government schemes and the most vulnerable. We have just made all these schemes of the government accessible to the most vulnerable, so that they are able to cope little bit with the financial losses. So that is one thing that I think we can, and all civil society organizations should try to do, is just ensure access of the government relief measures to the most needy and the most vulnerable. The second thing that I think we should do is, we have, so the migrant workers who have gone, they are skilled people. So what we should do as civil society organization is do a skill mapping. Do a skill mapping of what are the skill sets that this population who has gone back possesses, and then try to have some kind of constructive engagement, start new enterprises for them so that they can use their skills. After all, they were dignified, they were earning their living through dignity, which we have just taken away. So we have to restore that. So to ease the burden on agriculture, we have to do a skill mapping so that they can be engaged in some other productive enterprising livelihoods. And the third thing that I would like to add over here is that in terms of public health, I mean, I think it's too late to build health infrastructures, but what we can do as a response to the COVID pandemic is to generate awareness on the health and the hygiene aspect, on what can do. Again, like Hand in Hand India, again, I can only talk about the work that we do and what I know of other NGOs who have been doing, telling people giving them the numbers of the testing centers, giving them, the precautionary measures of how they should conduct themselves, and of course, helping them access the government schemes. This is something that I think we should do, help the people cope, with these losses.
So, Dr. Sharan, lastly, we would like to know, some advice that you would like to give students of sociology who want to work in the development sector later on.
Advice to students of sociology in the development sector. So I think first is to have empathy. I think we should work with empathy and compassion. That's number one. And especially in the development sector, I think in all sectors, we just have to work with compassion. Second, we have to be good at our work. So whether it is the development sector or any other sector, when we choose to work in a particular area, we have to have mastery in that area. So heart is one thing, but knowing your subject, knowing your content is equally important. We have to be good at what we do. It is not just having a good heart. It is also having the right skills. So we have to constantly be, generating skills for ourselves also, not be stagnant. And the third is that I would advise is that, so as sociologists, we are gifted actually. We have this, knack of working at the grassroots, working at the micro, working at the individual level, but looking at social order. We have the ability to juxtapose between these two worlds, the micro and the macro. So while I work with rural women, their families, the households, the community engagement, but that's also to build harmony, justice, and social order. So these are the three things that I think we as sociologists can bring to the development sector.
Thank you, Dr. Sharan. On behalf of the Doing Sociology team, we thank you so much for giving us time. This conversation with you has indeed been enriching, and I'm sure our viewers also would learn a lot, would take a lot from this interview with you. We thank you again, and we hope to, come in touch with you again in the future. So thank you again, Dr. Sharan.
Yes,
thank you so much, Dipali and Rituparna. It has been nice to be talking to young people who are interested in sociology. So please keep doing good sociology and working with your heart and souls and minds. Thank you so much.
You. We also hope that many more good students of sociology do join the development sector and keep doing the good work that you have been doing as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.